Rain fell hard, as if the sky had finally lost its patience. It wasn't loud, just endless, cold, steady, and clinging to everything it touched. In the basement of a Harrington tower, Isabella Torres, 27, pushed her mop one last time, her fingers raw and red from chemicals. The night shift ended at 2 a.m., and all she wanted now was to stop existing for a while. She pulled on her thin jacket, tightened her scarf, and stepped out through the service door. In her hands were 2 plastic bags, a stale loaf of bread, a few painkillers, and a bottle of medicine for Eli, her 18-year-old brother, fragile and sick, the only reason she still kept moving. The city slept. Streetlights reflected on puddles like tired eyes watching her pass. Rain and wind slapped her face, reminding her she didn't belong anywhere. She walked fast, shoes soaked, soles whispering against the empty street. 40 minutes on foot saved $4. $4 meant half a dose of medicine. Her life was an equation that never balanced, trading exhaustion for time, time for survival, and still coming up short. When she turned into the narrow alley between 2 warehouses, she hesitated. The light there had died. Darkness hung thick, dripping from the gutters. She knew it wasn't safe, but the main road would take 10 more minutes. 10 minutes too long. She pulled up her hood, tightened her grip on the bags, and stepped in. Her footsteps echoed softly over the wet cement. Then a voice, rough, male, cutting through the rain. "Miss Torres." She froze. 3 men emerged from the shadows, black coats, pale faces, the smell of vodka and smoke. She didn't need names to know them. Sozan's men. The one in the middle smirked. "We've been looking for you. Lucky night." "I told you," Isabella said, clutching her bag. "I'll pay. I just need more time." "Time is money," he replied, tone sharp as glass. "Your late husband left a pretty debt. Widow inherits. Law's law." "He's dead," she hissed, "and I owe you nothing." He tilted his head. "You've got a little brother, right? Eli, hospitals can be such dangerous places." She went pale. The image of Eli, weak, smiling through the tubes, flashed through her mind. "Don't touch him." "Then pay." A hand grabbed her arm. The bag ripped. Bread hit the water. Another man blocked her path. She fought, but exhaustion had made her body useless. If they took her tonight, no one would find her. 48 hours, the leader said, voice soft, dangerous. "After that, we collect, and next time maybe we don't stop at money." Her chest tightened, breath catching like wire. She had faced fear before, but not this kind, not the kind that smelled like rain and rust. Then, a low growl of an engine, steady and deep, breaking the silence apart. Headlights tore through the rain, lighting up the alley like daylight. A black car stopped. The back door opened. A man stepped out. The light touched his face. Sharp lines, cold eyes, a thin scar slicing through his left brow. He walked slowly, deliberately, every step shrinking the air between them. The collectors stepped back without realizing why. He didn't look at them. He looked at Isabella. Her breath vanished. That face, those eyes, older now, harder, but unmistakable. It couldn't be. 10 years ago, she'd buried the boy who promised, "Wait for me, I'll come back." Adrian Moretti. The name thundered inside her head like a ghost calling from the past. Memory flooded back, the rooftop, the rain, his voice in her ear. He never came back. Until now. Adrian stopped a few feet away, his voice, low and rough, carried across the rain. "Let her go," one of the men laughed. "Private business, not yours." Adrian tilted his head. eyes fixed on her, calm as a storm before it breaks. From now on, anything concerning her concerns me. No one moved. The man's grip loosened. Isabella pulled free, breath trembling. She looked at him, lips shaking, barely whispering. "Adrian." He met her eyes, and for a heartbeat, everything else disappeared. The rain fell harder. The city held its breath. "Hello, Isa," he said softly. His voice was warm and cold at once, a promise reborn in the rain after 10 long years of silence. The rain refused to stop, pouring down as if trying to drown the city whole. The headlights painted the wet asphalt gold, steam rising from the car's hood, mixing with the metallic scent of smoke and fear. Isabella stood frozen, clutching the torn bag, eyes locked on the man whose voice had just broken 10 years of silence. Adrian. The lead collector still tried to sound brave, but his voice trembled. "Who the hell are you to interfere?" Adrian slowly took his hand out of his coat pocket. Metal flashed faintly under the rain. He didn't answer. One of the men recognized the silver falcon emblem on his cuff and went pale. In New York's underworld, that mark belonged to one man only. He didn't need a gun or threats. Just his presence was enough to crush the air around them. From this moment, his voice was calm but absolute. "Her debt belongs to me." The middleman blinked. "To you?" "Yes," Adrian said, each syllable cold and deliberate. "Every debt she owes, every man who touches her, now owes me." Isabella heard him and felt something twist inside her chest. His words were both a shield and a shackle, saving her and suffocating her all at once. The boy she had known was gone. What stood before her was a storm disguised as a man. The collectors exchanged glances. One backed away, another nodded quickly. Their leader hesitated, then lowered his head. As they disappeared into the curtain of rain, he glanced back, fear, anger, and warning all tangled in his stare. Silence dropped heavy over the alley. Only rain remained, and the rapid pulse in Isabella's throat. Adrian took a step closer, close enough for her to see the faint scar across his brow. He looked at her, and in that look, she saw the ghost of every night she'd spent wondering if he'd survived. She whispered, hoarse, "You're alive?" He smiled faintly, without warmth. "Apparently." "How, where?" "It's a long story," he said. "Not for tonight." His eyes flicked to her trembling hands. "You're freezing. Get in the car." "No," she snapped, shaking her head. "I don't know who you are anymore. I don't need—" "Get in." The command was quiet but final, the kind of tone that didn't allow refusal. She looked at the car. Through the tinted glass, a driver sat motionless, face barely lit by the dashboard glow. The scene felt unreal, like walking into a dream built from pieces of her worst memories. Adrian shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. The fabric was heavy, warm, carrying the scent of smoke and leather. 10 years, and he still knew how to disarm her senses without touching her. The sedan glided through the rain. Inside, there was only the rhythmic sound of wipers and their breathing. Isabella leaned back, still gripping the torn bag. Streetlights smeared gold through the wet glass, lines stretching endlessly ahead. "Where were you for 10 years?" she asked, her voice softer than she meant it to be. Adrian stayed silent for a moment. The streetlight revealed the hollow under his eyes, the old scar on his chin. "Far," he said at last, "where only the dead get peace. And now you're back. For what?" He turned his head slightly, his gaze pinning her in place. "To take back what was stolen, including you." The words hit like a slap. Isabella let out a short, bitter laugh. I'm not something you can take, Adrian. I'm not yours. Maybe not, he said quietly. But you can't deny that you're still here, and I'm still the only one who showed up. Young, she met his eyes, anger sparking through exhaustion. I've lived 10 years without you. I don't owe you anything. He didn't look away. You owe me an answer. Why you're still living like you died with them. The nameless them, his family, stabbed through her like a memory she'd buried alive. Gunfire, blood, the scream she never stopped hearing. She turned to the window, eyes stinging. The car rolled to a stop in front of her decaying building. He turned off the engine but didn't look at her. Go upstairs, sleep. No one will touch you again. Your debt is gone. She blinked, startled. What did you say? Adrian turned, eyes dark and unreadable. I bought it. The contracts, the names, the Sozin accounts. You owe nothing now. You can't do that, her voice cracked. I don't want to owe anyone, least of all you. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. Call it a debt, call it protection, doesn't matter. You don't have the right. I have every right, he said softly, deadly calm. From the moment they touched you. She froze, unable to tell if what she felt was fear or fury. Adrian stepped out into the rain, then turned back, his voice low but certain. Go to sleep, Isa, whether you want it or not. You're not alone anymore. The door closed with a heavy thud. She sat there, staring at the empty space he'd left, the warmth of his jacket still clinging to her skin. Outside, the rain kept falling, and somewhere between the sound of it and her heartbeat, she realized she was crying without knowing why. That night, Isabella didn't sleep. She sat in her small, damp room, listening to the rain, counting the hours against the window pane. Adrian's jacket still hung on the chair, soaked and heavy. She stared at it for a long time, the scent of leather, smoke, and old memories clinging to the fabric. 10 years convincing herself he was gone, that the boy she loved had died. And yet, in one night, under the same rain that once took him away, he returned, alive, too real, like a ghost demanding the soul he left behind. She sat until morning came. The hallway light outside her door dimmed to a pale gray. When someone knocked, 3 short, patient knocks, she didn't need to guess who it was. The door opened. Adrian stood there, dry despite the rain still falling outside. Everything about him was composed. Clean shirt, cold eyes, faint trace of cologne. He placed a paper bag on the table, filled with cash, new medication, and hospital receipts marked paid. You didn't have to do this, she said, voice hoarse from sleeplessness. Yes, I did. Eli needs his medicine. You need rest. I'm just fixing things. Fixing? She gave a tired, bitter laugh. You disappear for 10 years, throw money at my life, and call that fixing? He didn't reply, just watched her, silent, steady. The look made her want to scream. She turned away, back pressed to the wall. Do you have any idea what happened after you vanished? Silence. Rain tapped against the window. I looked for you, she continued, voice trembling but relentless. For days, then months, then years. They said you were dead. I had nothing left, not even a grave to mourn. Only your name and the debts that followed it. She laughed bitterly. My mother died of a heart attack. The bank took the house. I quit school, found work, and then I met him. Adrian's eyes flickered. Who? The man I married. I thought he could save me, but he was worse than the debts. He hit. He drank. He sold me to the same men you just scared away. When he died gambling, I couldn't even cry. I only thought, at least I'm free this time." Adrian's hand tightened at his side. His voice dropped low. "What did he do to you?" She met his eyes, bitter smile trembling on her lips. "What men usually do when they think they own something." He closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and when he opened them again, the fury inside them was cold and dangerous. "His name? Doesn't matter," she said quickly. "He's gone, but his debts aren't. Those men you met last night, I'm paying for his mistakes so they won't touch Eli." The mention of her brother softened her tone. "Eli's sick. He needs medicine and peace. I work 2 jobs day and night. I'm tired, but at least I'm surviving. And now you show up, turning everything upside down. You pay my debts, my rent, the hospital bills, and—" her voice broke. "You even bought the building I live in." Adrian didn't deny it. He nodded once, calm and terrifyingly certain. "Now you and Eli are safe. No one will dare touch you again." She stepped closer, eyes red, voice cracking between anger and disbelief. "You think I should thank you? You think money erases everything? You can't buy redemption, Adrian, and you can't buy me." He met her gaze, tone quiet but heavy. "I don't need to buy you." "Then what do you want?" "I want you safe." "By putting me in your debt?" Adrian moved closer, and she stepped back until the wall met her spine. "By making sure you understand that whether you want it or not, I'll protect you. You don't get to decide that." "I do," he said, voice colder, "when others have already laid their hands on you." His breath brushed her skin, warm and sharp as a blade. She looked at him, heart pounding with anger, fear, and something she refused to name. "You're suffocating me, Adrian. I don't need a savior." "Then pay me back," he murmured. "Until you do, you belong to me." The air froze. Only rain filled the silence. Isabella stood still, heart racing, not sure whether it was fury or terror trembling in her veins. Adrian turned and walked out, leaving her in the dim, humid room. On the table, the hospital receipt lay open. Eli Torres, paid in full. For the first time in years, she cried. Not because she was broken, but because she couldn't decide whether to thank him or hate him for coming back from the dead just to chain her again. That night passed in silence. After Adrian left, Isabella sat for hours, staring at the hospital bill on the table as if it were a sentence. Outside, the rain faded, but inside her, a storm began. From the moment he said, "You belong to me," she knew she was caught again in the same spiral she once nearly died escaping. The following days, Adrian didn't appear, yet traces of him lingered everywhere. The hospital paid, the rent cleared. Strangers began showing up near her building. Plain clothes, but sharp eyes, deliberate steps. They called themselves security, but Isabella knew better. They were his men. Every lock that clicked, every creak in the hallway, felt like someone watching. Eli noticed first. "There's a guy outside," he whispered. "He keeps staring at our window." Isabella forced a smile, brushing his hair back. "It's fine, baby. They're just watching out for us." But the unease beneath her skin kept growing. On the third night, just as she was leaving for her diner shift, the lights flickered and died. Darkness swallowed the apartment, followed by the acrid scent of burning. She stepped into the hallway. Emergency lights pulsed dim red, reflecting off a wall streaked with orange flame. Then gunfire. One shot, then another. Screams, the metallic clatter of panic. Eli's voice called her name, small and terrified. She rushed into his room, grabbed him off the bed, glass shattered, raining shards across the floor. Heavy boots thundered closer. A shout in thick Russian. "Isabella Torres, time to pay Moretti's debt." Her arms tightened around Eli. Fear surged, but survival hit harder. She pulled him toward the back door just as a bullet punched through the wall, splintering where they'd been standing. Smoke thickened fast. The air turned chemical, the smell of burning plastic and gunpowder choking her lungs. She coughed, eyes watering, dragging Eli down the narrow hall. At the stairwell, a sharp crack split the air. Bang! A body fell in front of them. Isabella froze, then saw Adrian step through the haze like he'd walked straight out of hell. His eyes were black fire, his movements precise. Each shot he fired was cold and final. No hesitation, no mercy. He grabbed them both, pushing them forward. "Move!" His voice rough and low. "You knew they'd come." "Sawzin family," he cut her off. "They're retaliating. I knew they'd try, not this soon." Smoke thickened. He guided them down the stairs, bullets snapping behind them. Outside, a black SUV waited with its engine running. 2 men hauled Eli inside. Another wrapped a jacket over Isabella's shoulders. The vehicle roared away as the building went up in flames. Windows burst, the reflection of fire burning in her eyes like her own life collapsing. Adrian sat beside her, face lit by red light. She turned to him, voice trembling. "What did you just do?" "I saved you." "Saved me?" She laughed, half-choked, tears mixing with smoke. "You dragged me into your war and call it saving?" His eyes darkened. "It's not my war, Isa. It's everyone's war who's ever been near me. That includes you." She stared at him, unable to argue, because deep down, she knew he was right. The moment he returned, safety ceased to exist. The next morning, the diner where she worked was blackened, sign melted, smoke still curling into the sky. The owner stood outside, pale. "They burned it," he said quietly. "Asked for you by name." She couldn't speak. Her hands curled tight in her coat pockets. When she returned, Adrian was already waiting. Seated near the window, posture straight, gaze distant like a soldier who'd stopped expecting peace. "I'm not leaving until you agree," he said. "This block isn't safe. They know your face." "I can't just leave. This is my home." "No." His tone sliced clean through her protest. "It's an address. You call it home because it's all you had. But I have something else." She said nothing. The faint light caught her face, pale with exhaustion and fear. Eli sat curled beside her, trembling. He reached for her hand. "Let's go, Isa," he whispered. "Please." That was what broke her. She turned to Adrian, voice barely above a breath. "Where will you take us?" "Home," he said simply. "Mine." That evening they drove away under another curtain of rain. The city blurred into streaks of gray. Neither spoke. The only sound was the rhythmic sweep of wipers and the storm outside. When the car turned the corner, an explosion tore the silence apart. The shockwave lit the sky orange. Isabella twisted in her seat. Her apartment building was gone, swallowed by flame. She didn't speak, didn't breathe. Adrian's jaw tightened as he gripped the wheel, eyes fixed forward. Everything she'd ever known, the walls, the nights, the small fragments of her life, burned behind them. And for the first time in years, Isabella couldn't tell whether she'd just been rescued or condemned to begin again inside a new kind of fire. The car stopped at dawn. Isabella opened her eyes in a haze, realizing they had left the city far behind. Ahead rose tall iron gates, curving like veins of steel. They opened silently as the SUV rolled through, following a cobblestone road that wound toward a sprawling mansion surrounded by mist. It was beautiful in a terrifying way, elegant, perfect, and cold, as if every stone had been placed not for comfort, but to keep escape impossible. When the car stopped, Adrian turned to her, voice deep and final. "You're safe now." Safe. The word rang hollow. She wasn't sure which frightened her more, the men who had tried to kill her or the one now keeping her alive. When she stepped out, she saw Eli being led inside by a nurse. The boy stared at the high ceilings and the glittering chandelier above. "It's like a palace," he whispered. Isabella squeezed his hand faintly. "Even palaces have guards, Eli." The Moretti estate was less a home than a fortress. Cameras hid in corners, guards patrolled the halls, servants moved soundlessly, avoiding even their own reflections. It was perfection so absolute that it strangled her. Their suite was 10 times larger than their old apartment, white sheets, soft light, roses beyond the window. A private doctor examined Eli, and within days, color returned to his cheeks, laughter to his voice. "This place is amazing," he told her. "I don't even cough anymore." She smiled faintly. "It's perfect. That's what makes it dangerous." That night, Adrian came. He wore a black shirt, sleeves rolled, calm as ever. He placed a file on the table. "A list of what you need, clothes, books, medicine. Write it down." "You think I can't buy things myself?" she asked. "I don't want you leaving the property. It's not safe. Or it's not allowed." He didn't answer. His silence pressed heavier than words. "You call this protection," she said quietly. "I call it captivity." Adrian's gaze held hers. "I lost you once, Isa. I won't lose you again." The days blurred into something too still. Eli thrived, she withered. Every step was monitored, every glance recorded. When she tried to walk beyond the garden, a guard appeared, polite but firm. "Restricted area, ma'am." She turned back, pulse tight. Cameras blinked from the corners like unblinking eyes. Meals arrived on time, beds made perfectly, her world folded into routine. Paradise had rules, and she was breaking none of them. That evening, she found Adrian downstairs in the shooting range. The air was sharp with gunpowder. Each shot he fired hit dead center, precise and merciless. She watched him for a moment, his figure cut from steel and shadow, the echo of gunfire filling the silence. When he lowered the weapon, she spoke. "Have you ever noticed how quiet this place is? It's not peace, Adrian. It's fear." He turned slowly, eyes dark. "It's the only place you're safe. No, it's a cage, and you built it." He stepped closer. "If it's a cage, it's one meant to shield you." She laughed softly, bitterness trembling in her throat. "You protect me like people protect expensive things. I'm not something to lock away, Adrian." He held her gaze, the edge of restraint in his voice. "This is the only way I know. I don't know how to love gently." The words sliced the air between them. Not an excuse, but a confession, raw and haunting. She saw in his eyes not only power and obsession, but exhaustion. A man who'd spent too long in darkness, mistaking possession for care. Isabella said nothing. Her anger burned low, tangled with pity, and something more dangerous, understanding. She knew he was broken, yet he was also the only one holding her together. Night at the Moretti estate was so quiet she could hear the wind slipping through the cracks in the doors. Isabella couldn't sleep. She sat by the window, staring into the mist-covered rose garden, every flower holding a secret it refused to tell. Everything here was too perfect, too still, as if she were living among ghosts. The door creaked open behind her. Adrian stepped in, still wearing his black shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, exhaustion shadowing his face. The warm light caught his eyes, making them seem deeper, darker, wells filled with memories. He stood there for a long moment before speaking, voice low and rough. "I owe you the truth." She didn't turn around. "One of many, I suppose?" He moved closer, stopping just a step behind her. "That night, the massacre at the Moretti house, I didn't die." Her shoulders tensed. Such simple words, yet they shattered everything inside her. "How did you survive?" Adrian's gaze drifted far away. "With blood, theirs, mine, everyone's. When the shooting started, I was in the basement with my father. He was hit. He told me to run. So I did. For the first time in my life, I ran to stay alive." His voice grew quiet, almost detached, as if the memory was too heavy to hold. "Someone loyal to him smuggled me out. I was sent to Sicily, hidden in an abandoned monastery. For 5 years, I learned how to survive, how to shoot, fight, disappear. They taught me to live without sleep, without fear. I forgot how to dream. The only thing I didn't forget was your face." Isabella turned slowly, eyes wide, torn between horror and pity. "All that, for me?" "For you," he said simply. "When I came back to New York, I wasn't the same man. I reclaimed the Moretti name, rebuilt the empire, destroyed the ones who took everything. But none of it mattered until I found you." She laughed softly, bitter and trembling. "And when you did, you thought building walls around me would erase the years you abandoned." He looked down, silent. "I didn't know another way." Isabella rose, facing him fully now, breath shaking. "You want to hear what happened to me after you vanished? You want to know what your absence cost?" Adrian nodded once, eyes dark with something close to dread. "Tell me." Her voice cracked but didn't break. "After that night, I searched for you. They said you were dead. I refused to believe it. I begged, I walked, I starved. When I came home, my mother was gone. The house lost. I worked, paid debts, then met the man you already know. He hit me, sold me, broke me. I stopped being a person. I was just breathing." She paused, tears sliding silently. "And you, across the ocean, learned how to kill. I learned how to endure. Different lessons, same pain." Adrian took a hesitant step toward her. She lifted her hand sharply. "Don't. You left. I survived. Don't make me pay for both." He froze. The room went still, the ticking clock the only sound. His voice came low, heavy as confession. "I never chose to leave you. Everything was taken from me, including the chance to come back." "And you think it wasn't taken from me too?" Isabella's voice trembled. "Do you know what it's like to wait for someone who's already dead? Every knock on the door, every shadow on the street, and every time realizing it's no one." She swallowed hard. "You don't know what losing faith feels like. You had weapons. I had hope, and hope kills slower than bullets, but it hurts longer." He stepped closer again, stopping within reach. "If hating me keeps you alive, then hate me. I'll take it, as long as you breathe." She stared up at him, tears clinging to her lashes. "I don't hate you because you lived, Adrian. I hate you because you didn't come back." Silence stretched thick and unbearable. Two people standing in the dim golden light, shadows long across the floor, the past and the present staring at each other, neither able to move. Finally, she whispered, voice hollow, "We're both ghosts, Adrian. You learned to kill to forget. I learned to suffer to remember." He reached out, brushed her shoulder with trembling fingers, then pulled away. "I don't want you to suffer anymore." "But I already have," she whispered back, "and nothing you do can erase that." They stood there a long time, surrounded by the breath of old pain and unspoken love, bound by the same wound, haunted by the same ghosts. After that night, the distance between them blurred. They didn't avoid each other, but neither did they seek each other out. Every meeting carried a quiet tension, Adrian's gaze deep and unreadable, Isabella's restraint fragile as glass. The air between them felt stretched, ready to break. One afternoon, she sat in the garden, reading, when Adrian appeared on the stone path. Sunlight softened his face, but his voice stayed sharp as ever. "I saw your contract at the diner." She frowned. "You what?" "I bought the place," he said simply. "You don't work there anymore." She stood, disbelief flashing into anger. "You did what?" "I don't want you leaving this house. You don't need to work. I'll take care of everything." She laughed, brittle, breathless. "I don't need you to take care of me. I need to live, Adrian. You want to lock me up forever?" "This isn't a prison," he said evenly. "It's protection." "Protection?" Her voice rose, trembling. "You call cutting me off from the world protection? I won't trade one kind of prison for another." His jaw tightened. "The world out there will destroy you, and you're wearing it down one piece at a time." Silence fell heavy between them. The wind carried the scent of roses, sweet and suffocating. She turned away, but his hand caught her wrist, not harshly, just firmly enough to keep her there. "I can't lose you again." "You never had me," she said through her teeth. The words hit him like a slap. Their faces were close, too close. She could smell the smoke and leather on his skin, the same scent that haunted her dreams. His eyes met hers, dark and raw. She backed up, but the wall was already behind her. Adrian leaned closer, voice low and rough. "You keep saying things that hurt me, but no matter how much you hate me, I still need you where I can see you. You think keeping me close will make me love you?" "No," he murmured, eyes steady. "But at least you'll still be alive." For a heartbeat, their breaths mingled. Isabella felt her chest tighten, her hands trembling. She saw the fracture beneath his armor, the vulnerability he never let anyone see. For an instant, she almost kissed him, or maybe she almost forgave him. Then she stepped back. "You can't make me live your way. I'm not a relic of your past, Adrian. I'm still here, and I belong to myself." He stood motionless, then exhaled, voice rough. "I just want you safe." "Safety isn't living," she said softly. "It's just another kind of fear." They stared at each other, words gone, only the wind moving between them. Rose petals fell to the stone like soft red scars. Finally, Adrian turned away. His voice was low, almost gentle. "One day you'll understand?" She didn't answer. At the doorway, he paused once more. "I never forgot my promise." Then he was gone, his shadow swallowed by the dying light. Isabella stood alone in the garden, the air thick with silence and the faint scent of roses, wondering if the line between love and captivity had already disappeared. 3 days later, as dawn broke over the valley, Adrian called Isabella to his study. The room was as cold and precise as ever, shelves lined in order, the scent of gun oil faint in the air. On the desk lay a map, dotted with red marks across the country, and a single black circle around one name, Nikolai Sozin. "That's him," Adrian said, voice like sharpened steel. "He's the one who murdered my parents, the man behind every debt that dragged you and Eli into hell." Isabella stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the map. "He started it all. And he'll end it." Adrian turned to her, eyes dark with a calm that was almost frightening. "I'm going to kill him." She froze, not out of fear, but from the cold certainty in his tone. "You've planned this?" "For years," he said, "but now he's hunting you. I can't wait any longer." A silence settled heavy between them. Then she spoke, steady, low. "I want to help." His gaze snapped to hers. "No, I'm not asking permission," she said, voice trembling but defiant. "He ruined my life too. I have a right to see him fall." Adrian moved closer, danger flickering in his eyes. "You don't know what you're asking for. Sozin isn't human." "And what are you, Adrian? The devil himself?" He stopped, and the air around them thickened. Rage, grief, and something else entirely coiled tight between them. "If I let you in," he said quietly, "you follow my orders. No hesitation, no questions." "Agreed," she said. He held her stare, then nodded once. "Then we start today." Training began in the back range of the estate. Isabella stood under the noon sun, arms tense around a pistol. Adrian stood behind her, his voice calm but commanding. "Relax your shoulders, breathe steady, aim for the center, not the outline." She fired. The shot went wide. Again. He stepped closer, adjusting her wrist, his hand warm against her skin. The heat of his breath brushed her neck. "Don't let fear control you," he murmured. "The gun doesn't kill. The one holding it does." This time, the bullet hit dead center. She exhaled, trembling. Adrian smiled faintly, the rare kind that softened him. "Good," she turned to him. "You're teaching me to kill." He shook his head. "I'm teaching you to survive if I'm not there." The words silenced her more than any command could. Days passed, drills, tactics, maps, coded messages. Between every order and correction, there were quiet moments, passing her a bottle of water, brushing a strand of hair from her face, standing too close but not moving away. Each touch accidental, deliberate, unbearable. One night, rain came. They sheltered in the wooden outpost near the range. The roof rattled under the storm, light flickering gold on Adrian's face as he removed his soaked shirt. Water and sweat glistened across his skin, the scent of rain and smoke heavy in the air. Isabella sat opposite him, heart pounding too loudly to ignore. He handed her a cup of tea. "You're shaking." "It's not the cold," she whispered. He froze. Their eyes met, and the distance disappeared. No words, no control, just two broken souls finally colliding. When he kissed her, it wasn't dominance, it was surrender. The desperate, silent kind that comes after too much pain. Everything else vanished, the storm, the fear, the years between them. There was only this, skin against skin, breath against breath, life against life. That night they belonged to each other, not as prisoner and protector, not as hunter and hunted, but as two people who had run out of ways to stay apart. In the dim light, with rain whispering on the roof, Isabella felt his heartbeat beneath her hands, fierce, fragile, real. And she knew, even if tomorrow brought war and blood, she would remember this night. The moment when two lost souls finally found each other, if only to break again. After that night of rain, something between them shifted. They didn't speak of it, but the air changed. Adrian's gaze softer, heavier, as if he knew what they'd shared wasn't weakness, but inevitability. 3 weeks later, intelligence confirmed that Nikolai Sozin would appear publicly at the Global Children's Charity Gala in Brooklyn. Their only chance. Adrian said simply, "A bullet isn't enough. He needs to disappear." The plan was clean. Adrian's team would handle the perimeter. Isabella, posing as a server, would slip poison into Nikolai's wine. "Just a few drops," Adrian told her, eyes steady. "No color, no taste. He'll die before dessert." She met his gaze. "If I don't come back, don't follow." His hand tightened on her shoulder. "I'll come even if it kills me." The night glittered like glass. Inside the grand hall overlooking the river, laughter floated among chandeliers and the soft strains of Mozart. Isabella blended into the line of servers, hair pinned, white shirt crisp, expression calm. Adrian's voice came through the earpiece, low and controlled. "Steady. Cameras are blind. Don't look at him." She breathed out. "Understood." When Nikolai Sozin entered, the room shifted. He was tall, silver-haired, immaculate in white, his smile polished, his eyes merciless. The kind of man who'd slit a throat and sip wine after. He moved easily through the crowd, shaking hands, owning the room. Isabella approached with the tray. Adrian's voice, 4 steps, now. She poured the wine, hand slipping into her apron pocket, unscrewing the vial. 2 drops. The liquid vanished into crimson. She set the glass before him and stepped back. But Nikolai looked up and smiled. Too long, too slow. Then, with a casual flick, he switched glasses. Isabella froze. "Isa, fall back," Adrian hissed in her ear. Before she could move, 2 men in black suits appeared, gripping her arms. The earpiece ripped away, clattering to the floor. They dragged her through a narrow hallway into a dim backstage room. Nikolai waited, calm, amused. "Such a pity," he said, voice thick with accent. "Beautiful girls shouldn't work for dead men." He poured himself a fresh glass of wine, took a slow sip, then signaled his guards. They forced her to her knees. "I knew he'd come for me," he continued, "but I didn't expect him to send something this lovely." He pressed a button on a remote. A screen flickered to life. Isabella's breath stopped. Eli, tied to a chair, mouth taped, eyes wide with terror. A knife gleamed behind him. "No," her voice cracked. "What have you done to him?" "Nothing," Nikolai said smoothly. "Not yet. The boy's valuable. Your fortress was impressive, but not impenetrable. Money opens gates. My inside man disabled your alarms and walked him out in daylight. I only wanted to see how fast our dear Adrian will bleed when he sees this." She screamed, struggling against the guards. "Please, don't hurt him." "I won't," Nikolai smiled. "If you cooperate." He crouched, face inches from hers. "Call him. Tell him where you are. Warehouse 12. You know the place." Her stomach twisted. "That's where his family—" "Exactly," he said, smirking. "Poetic, isn't it? The devil returning to the place he was born." Tears stung her eyes. She knew Adrian would come, for her, for Eli, for the ghosts that still ruled him, and she knew it was a trap. Nikolai handed her the phone. "Call." Her fingers shook. Each tone of the dial felt like a nail hammered into her chest. When Adrian's voice came through, she almost couldn't speak. "Adrian, please, don't." Before she could finish, Nikolai snatched the phone, pressing speaker mode. "I'm waiting at Warehouse 12, Moretti," he drawled. "Bring your pain. I'll give it back whole." Adrian's voice was steel. "If you touch her or the boy, I'll burn your entire world." Nikolai laughed, ending the call. "I like him angry." He turned to Isabella. brushing her chin with a cold hand. "See you soon, Ms. Torres." The guards dragged her away. Outside, the orchestra shifted to a gentle waltz, elegant, hollow, cruel. And as the door shut behind her, Isabella realized the night had finally come full circle. Every choice, every wound, had led them back to the same place, where love and death waited together, and one of them would not survive. Rain poured over Brooklyn like vengeance from the sky. Adrian drove alone through the storm, headlights cutting across the empty streets toward Warehouse 12, the place where his family had been slaughtered 10 years ago. Tonight, he was returning not to die, but to end it. The warehouse loomed out of the dark like a rusted monster. 25 armed men stood guard under flickering lights. Adrian parked 200 meters away, adjusted the gun strapped to his ankle, and stepped into the rain. "One last time," he whispered, "just once more." He walked straight toward the gate, hands empty. The Russians raised their rifles, shouting. He didn't stop. "I came alone," he said calmly. Their leader smirked and opened the gate. "Come in, Moretti. He's been waiting." Inside, yellow light glowed through a haze of smoke and oil. The air smelled of rust, of blood long dried. Every step echoed through the hollow building. At the center stood Nikolai Sozin, tall and broad, cigar burning between his fingers. Behind him, Isabella, bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror. Beside her, Eli, pale and trembling, wrists tied to a chair. "You're late," Nikolai sneered. "How does it feel to stand where your parents died?" Adrian's voice was ice. "Like standing over your grave." The Russian laughed. "Good. You still have that arrogance. I want to see it burn." He yanked Isabella closer, blade grazing her throat. "She's lovely, just like your mother before I slit her open." Adrian's fists clenched, but he didn't move. One wrong step, and Eli would die. He steadied his breathing, every sense razor sharp. Rain hammered the roof above like the pulse of war. "Let them go," Adrian said evenly. "This is between you and me." "Oh, but I want them to watch," Nikolai growled. "Just like I watched my uncles die in your house." The first shot came from one of Nikolai's men, too soon. The bullet grazed Adrian's arm. He dove sideways, drew his gun, and fired 3 times. 3 bodies dropped before anyone realized what happened. "Kill him," Nikolai roared. The warehouse exploded into chaos. Gunfire shattered the air. Sparks flew as bullets ripped through metal beams. Adrian rolled behind a crate, firing with deadly precision. Every pull of the trigger, a decade of vengeance released. One by one, the Russians fell. Through the haze, Isabella struggled against her ropes, sawing them with a shard of metal. Eli sat motionless, eyes wide, watching his sister fight, and the man he once feared move like a storm given flesh. When the gunfire slowed, only a handful of guards remained. Nikolai grabbed Isabella again, pressing the blade to her neck. "Drop it, or she dies." Adrian stopped, soaked in blood and rain. His eyes locked on hers. Between them, water dripped from the ceiling like glass threads. She shook her head slowly, tears and rain mingling on her skin. "Don't," she mouthed. Then Eli moved. In one sudden burst, the boy lunged forward and bit into Nikolai's hand, teeth sinking deep. The man screamed, jerking his arm away. The knife slipped. That single second was enough. Adrian dropped to one knee, drew the hidden pistol from his ankle, and fired 3 perfect shots: shoulder, chest, head. The Russian giant staggered, disbelief frozen on his face. Before he hit the floor, silence, the kind that comes after death. Adrian threw the gun aside and ran to Isabella. She collapsed into his arms, body trembling, skin cold. Blood seeped from a shallow wound at her shoulder, but her pulse still beat weakly against his palm. "It's over," he whispered. "You're safe now." Her lips moved, voice faint. "I'm so tired, Adrian." "I know, you'll be okay." She shook her head slightly, tears lost in the rain. "I don't want to just survive anymore. I want to live." Adrian's throat tightened. He gripped her hand so hard blood welled at his knuckles. "Then we'll live, I swear it." Outside, the storm raged on. Under its furious rhythm, Nikolai Sozin lay motionless, eyes wide, life leaking into the concrete. In Adrian's arms, Isabella closed her eyes, face pale but peaceful. He pressed his lips to her forehead, a kiss that tasted of blood, rain, and the promise that had carried them through hell. Dawn rose over a city still smelling of smoke. After the blood-soaked night at Warehouse 12, it felt like the world itself had gone silent. Adrian drove Isabella and Eli through the rain, away from Brooklyn, away from the ghosts. The safe house sat deep in Vermont's forest, a wooden cabin swallowed by pines. When the car stopped, Isabella was still unconscious. Adrian carried her inside, laid her on the bed, his hands trembling, not from exhaustion, but from fear. Eli huddled on the couch, eyes red. "Is she going to die?" Adrian shook his head. "No, she'll wake up. Stay close. Don't leave this room." The boy nodded, silent. When Isabella finally woke, sunlight filtered through the curtains, soft and gold. Every muscle in her body screamed. The first thing she saw was Adrian, sitting beside the bed, elbows on his knees, eyes hollow but bright. "You're awake," he said softly. She tried to sit, and he helped her. His hands were warm, steady. "Where's Eli?" "Asleep next door," he said. "We made it, all of us." Tears welled before she could stop them. Adrian pulled her close, arms tight around her. "You're stronger than anyone I've ever known." Her voice trembled. "I'm just tired. I don't want to keep surviving, Adrian. I want to live." "Then live," he whispered. "With me." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "Do you even know what living means?" He gave a small, broken smile. "Not yet. Maybe you'll teach me." For a while, there was only the sound of the wind through the trees. No gunfire, no sirens. For the first time in years, peace didn't feel like danger. But peace never lasted long. When Adrian stepped outside to fetch medicine, Isabella went to check on Eli. The boy slept soundly, blanket rising and falling with each breath. As she tucked it around him, something silver glinted at his neck, a small pendant, metallic, cold. She frowned, lifted it, and saw the tiny LED light pulsing, a tracking chip. Her pulse spiked. The room spun for a second. She tore the chain off and clenched it in her fist, fury mixing with betrayal. When Adrian returned, she was waiting. Her face was pale, eyes burning. She threw the necklace onto the table. It clattered like a gunshot. "What is this?" He froze. "Isabella, let me explain." "You put a tracker on him? On my brother?" "I needed to make sure." "You watched him. You watched us." Her voice cracked, anger laced with pain. "I thought you trusted me." Adrian's expression tightened. "I lost everything once because I didn't watch closely enough. I can't lose you again." "And what about what I lose?" she snapped. "My freedom? My choice? You say you want me to live, but you keep building cages around me." "Living means trusting, Adrian, not controlling." The silence that followed was heavier than any scream. Rain began to fall outside, soft at first, then harder. "If you want me to stay," she said quietly, "then we need boundaries. No secrets, no orders. We decide together." Adrian stood still for a long moment, then nodded. "I promise." "No," she said firmly, "not a promise, a deal." He reached out his hand. She hesitated, then placed hers in his. His skin was rough, scarred, human. "From now on," he said, voice rough, "every decision is ours. No lies, no commands, no cages." "And I won't run," she replied. "But if you cross that line, I'll walk away." They stood like that, two people bound not by control, but by choice. Then Adrian squeezed her hand once, gently. "Deal." Outside, the rain softened. Inside, 3 survivors sat under the dim light of the cabin. Not criminals, not victims, just a broken family learning how to exist after the ashes. Isabella looked out the window at the misty forest, and for the first time felt something fragile but real take root inside her. It wasn't peace, it was hope. After the rain in Vermont, life began again, not with gunfire, but with silence. In the cabin deep in the woods, Adrian, Isabella, and Eli learned how to breathe like normal people. Yet normal had never been a word meant for them. Each sunrise felt like a scar that refused to fade, a reminder of everything they'd lost and everything they still feared to hope for. 3 months later, Adrian made a decision. "We can't hide forever," he said. "If we want to live, we face it." Isabella held his gaze, then nodded. She knew this wasn't just a return. It was a reckoning. The Moretti family council gathered at the main estate, a fortress reborn after years of blood. Dozens of faces sat around the long wooden table, the weight of the underworld pressing down with every breath. When Adrian entered, the room stilled. When Isabella followed, silence turned sharp. Adrian stood at the head of the table, eyes hard as steel. "I have something to say." No one dared interrupt. He looked around once, then placed his hand on Isabella's shoulder. His voice was steady, clear. "Isabella Torres isn't just the woman I love. She's mine, and she stands beside me from this day forward." A murmur rippled through the room. One elder sneered. "An outsider? A girl who once owed us debt? You'd make us bow to her?" Adrian's gaze cut across the table. "Not bow, but understand. Anyone who disrespects her stands against me." No one spoke after that. Power had its own language, and they all understood it. Isabella stood silent beside him, her heart beating in her throat. Once, she'd scrubbed floors for men like these. Now she stood in the room where their orders could kill thousands. When Adrian's hand tightened on hers, she realized he wasn't just giving her a title, he was sharing his throne. In the days that followed, Isabella learned. Adrian introduced her to the Moretti Foundation, the organization that laundered their business profits, but she refused to let it stay a facade. She went to the Bronx, the orphanages, the clinics, the streets she once hid in. "This money was born from pain," she told the board, her tone quiet but sharp. "It's time it pays its debt." They stared, doubting, until they saw that she spoke not like a politician, but like someone who had bled. And blood, in their world, commanded respect. She worked relentlessly. Meetings, negotiations, late-night reports. Slowly, the foundation shifted. 40% of profits began funding free surgeries, shelters, scholarships. The streets whispered a new rumor, that the Moretti Empire was cleansing itself through the hands of a woman who had once been its victim. One night, Adrian found her on the balcony, hair loose, face lit by the city below. She was reviewing financial statements. He stood behind her, watching quietly. "You're changing this empire," he murmured. She smiled faintly. "No, just trying to make it a little less cruel." He brushed a kiss across her forehead. "I used to think power only existed in darkness, but maybe the light scares people more." She chuckled. "You're only saying that because I can now sign off on your funds without asking." He laughed. "Rare, real. Maybe." Soon the underworld began calling her La Reina, the Queen of Moretti, not for her beauty, but for her silence. She didn't need to raise her voice. She only had to speak once. And the world moved. But Isabella never forgot the line she'd drawn. Power, she knew, could heal or devour. She visited the same clinics and shelters, held the hands of children who reminded her of the girl she once was. At sunset, standing by the glass window of the Moretti Tower, she watched the city glow. Adrian came behind her, arms encircling her waist. "Do you regret it?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "No, I'm not completely free, but at least I'm no longer useless." He rested his chin on her shoulder. "Freedom fades, meaning doesn't, and you've found yours." She leaned into him, eyes on the horizon where the sun sank into the skyline. Below them, the city shimmered like embers, remnants of the past reborn in light. And in that reflection, she was no longer the girl who once trembled in the rain. She was the woman who had built her own empire from the ashes, the queen of what survived. That night, the city slept under a moonless sky. The skyline burned faintly with dying lights. In the glass-walled room of the Moretti estate, Isabella sat alone, the glow from the lamp painting her face in shades of gold and fatigue. Adrian wasn't home yet. She was used to waiting, but tonight the air felt heavy, as if something had ended or was about to. The door opened. The smell of blood entered before he did. Adrian stepped inside, shirt stained dark, eyes shadowed and hollow. The weight of his world followed him in. She didn't ask. She simply rose, helped him out of his jacket, and fetched a bowl of warm water. He sat while she knelt before him, cloth in hand. The water turned pink as she wiped away the red from his fingers, slow and steady. "Another night like this," she whispered. He met her gaze. "I thought I'd stop feeling it one day, but every time the blood hits my hands, I remember, some things don't wash away." "Then don't wash them away," she murmured. "They're the proof you survived." Adrian's shoulders sagged. "I'm tired, Isabella. Tired of a world that always demands blood to keep breathing." She smiled faintly. "Then bleed if you must, but remember, you chose to cleanse it with love." Silence. The clock ticked. Rain tapped against the glass. Then Adrian reached into his pocket and placed a small velvet box in her hands. "I can't promise peace," he said, voice rough with truth. "But I promise you'll never walk through the dark alone again." Inside the box was a simple silver ring. No diamonds, only an engraving inside, "Per sempre nell'ombra," forever in the shadows. Tears welled in her eyes. "I accept," she whispered, "not because I need you, but because I choose you." He exhaled, long and shaky, as if freed. He kissed her hand gently. "At last," he said softly, "I'm home." For a while, neither spoke. The rain kept falling, washing the blood from his skin, not from their souls, but maybe that was enough. The wedding took place 3 weeks later in the garden behind the estate. No guests of power, no orchestra, only a handful of loyal souls. The air smelled of rain and jasmine. Isabella didn't wear white. She wore emerald green, the color of oceans and rebirth. Adrian wore gray, unarmed, unguarded. When they stood together beneath the fading sun, time seemed to pause. Their vows were their own. Adrian spoke first. "I can't promise I'll always be right. I can't promise the world will forgive me. But I'll always be honest, even when the truth hurts. I'll protect you not with chains, but with respect." Isabella replied, "I don't need a savior, just someone who stays when the storm ends. I won't be perfect, only true. I won't obey. I'll stand beside you." They exchanged rings and sealed it with a kiss under the dimming sky. No fireworks, no forever. Just two souls who had survived hell, learning how to live inside its shadow, together. Later that night, Isabella stood outside, the scent of wet earth filling the air. Adrian came behind her, draped his jacket over her shoulders. "The bride looks thoughtful," he murmured. She smiled, "Just realizing how far we've come." He wrapped his arms around her. "Remember 10 years ago? I promised I'd come back." "You did," she said softly. "Just a little late." He chuckled. "Late's better than never." They watched the garden glistening with the dew. Isabella took his hand, her voice barely above a whisper. "Love didn't save us from the dark." Adrian turned to her. "Then what did it do?" She smiled, quiet, knowing. "It taught us how to live in it." And they stayed there, two souls bound by blood, by scars, and by choice. The night wrapped around them like a familiar cloak. But this time the darkness felt gentle, because at last they had learned how to make it home.